All right, so Toyota is at their antics again, potentially throwing up a Hail Mary here with a new development, really kind of trying to keep up with what's happening in the EV market. Today, we're going to break that down right here. My name is Paul Barron. This is TechPath. Toyota has released the Aygo X Prologue, which is an interesting vehicle. If you look at the design elements that they have basically put together from their design studio over in Nice, that's in Europe, they are really going after the European auto market. The question is whether this car is going to be targeted at the EV. If you look at where some of the top sellers are, including the Renault is basically the #1 electric vehicle. And when you kind of compare those two frames, the body models, you can kind of see these two particular cars do kind of align on their own. The question will be release dates and also costs. Could enter production as late as 2022 with a little bit more road-ready version of the car showcased about this time next year. Also, what we could see is, depending on where their current pricing is, if it does go all electric versus their current Aygo, at $14,000 US. So it's going to be interesting to see how this car kind of develops. I don't think Toyota themselves really know which way they're going to take it. One thing that has happened is Toyota has decided that this particular format will have a successor, according to Johan van Zyl, CEO of Toyota Europe. And they think this is going to basically be a purely electric vehicle. And this potentially could be the case with this car of them jumping right to an EV for the rollout of this particular vehicle, especially because it is, obviously targeted at that entry-level EV market, which is a missing link right now in the EV space outside of the Chevy Bolt. There are not a lot of other options when you look at all the car companies, EV companies that are really kind of going that direction. And if you look at where Toyota is kind of pushing, here's kind of a theory. And this is that they're rolling out this concept with the Prologue version of this vehicle. And at the same time, they're over here basically lobbying Capitol Hill in the US to slow down EV development, which is kind of contradictive of where they're going with potentially their development. Then they have their new SUV revealing in April. I just don't understand what Toyota's up to here, because if they're revealing EVs and they're all in on this, then why wouldn't they be all in on electric vehicle deployment here in the United States, which is one of the biggest markets for Toyota? When you look at their top sellers being the Camry and the Corolla, and that market potentially being cannibalized by EVs, and if you look at like top sellers in Europe outside the Renault, who's #2, the Tesla Model 3. So there's a lot of, I think, strategies that are being deployed here by Toyota. My question is whether or not Toyota is all in on electric vehicles. That's the real question here. I don't see and don't understand why they have not rolled this out. And if this was going to be a fully electric vehicle, why did they not release this reveal with a big pounding their chest of this is the potential car that could take on the Bolt, potentially Tesla's new concept car, especially in this sub $25,000 category. This could blow up for Toyota as becoming the #1 EV maker in the United States, especially because they have such a great dealer network. They have such a great consumer confidence. They also have great consumer sentiment here in the United States. I just don't understand why Toyota is slowing things down. I love the look of this car. The design concept is definitely there. It does have that kind of crossover. It sits a little bit higher. It does have kind of that wider stance, which I think is a great element in a lot of the vehicles that are being brought to market right now. I think Toyota has a winner on the looks side of this. I think it's all going to boil down to the power plant. Are they going to take this baby on the EV track and really kind of go head-to-head with some of the big players in the space? That's going to be the question. It's going to be the thing we're going to be watching very closely as Toyota continues their cat-and-mouse game, I think, with electric vehicles. Because if you listen to a lot of what they have said in the past is they don't believe in electric vehicles. Their CEOs have said this. And at the same time, they're over here developing in so many new developments for especially Europe, which is really kind of pretty much moved over to the transition of EVs. When you look at the countries like Norway, Sweden, et cetera, some of the top EV penetration in terms of automotive sales in Europe. And if you're going to sell this car in Europe, I just don't see why you wouldn't make this an electric vehicle. So this is going to be an interesting to watch scenario with this particular car. I do think there are some interesting concepts that could be on the benefit here for Toyota, mainly on the design side. And obviously, I think they'll definitely come in and compete price-wise with Renault and what they're doing and leading the space in terms of EVs in Europe. So we'll keep a close watch on this one. I can't wait to see their SUV as they break that out in April. We'll definitely cover it right here on the show. Make sure, if you're listening in over on the podcast side of things for this show, make sure and just leave us a rating. We also like that feedback. If you have an idea for a show, make sure and shoot us a note to producer@reverenttnetworks.com. You can also hit me up on Twitter, of course, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.